going to be creating together. And so if that is not in your comfort zone right now, and if you're like, I just want to see presentations, please take care of yourself. So that's the space we're going to be co-creating today. So how I would love to start, and Stoney, I just really love that you talk so much about values, which just like segue beautifully into some of the creative work we're going to be doing together today around our own respective values. But before I start, I would love just to hear a little bit about everyone in this space. So super quick, what's your name, or what do you like to be called, right? And then what I would like to hear is just a little bit about your creative practice. Wait a minute, Aubrey, I don't have a creative practice, I'm not an artist. Well, I'm going to push back on that, right? So creativity is defined as having original ideas, right? Or using your imagination. So that could be, right, when you go for a walk, that could be a creative practice, right? Where you get to think about things. Or when you cook for your family, right? So I would love to hear just like, what's your name? Just a little something about you, and what is one of your creative practices? And again, if you're not comfortable, you can pass it, yeah? Alona, is it okay if we start with you?
Yes. Hello, my name is Alona Wild, and I'm a potter, and that's my favorite form of art, but I really love combining drawing on my pottery as well, so kind of a two-step and bringing illustration onto a three-dimension, yeah, having that like multi-purpose and having a beautiful piece of functional as well.
Thank you.
Stoney, I consider, while I'm trained as a painter and got into mixed media installation work, I consider open air to be a pretty living practice. That's something that's called a community engaged practice. So I do see this work as my creative practice. I also am a mother of a 2-year-old, and that is a deeply creative practice as well.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Lizzie. My background is in the performing arts, and I'm a dancer and mover. Currently, part of my creative practice, my future mother-in-law is staying with us right now, and we have been collaborating a lot on cooking together.
Cool.
I would say that, and then my partner and I love to look at a map and unearth places to discover and go explore.
Really, yeah. Thanks, Lizzie.
My name is Liz, and I'm a writer and editor, and I like to screw around with sculpture and making jewelry, and I have a fascination with covering things in acrylic and lucite. I think that you just capture it, whatever it is. So that's a fascination for me, and I appreciate other people's art.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Liz.
Hi, I'm Alicia. Yeah, I would say a little bit of an interdisciplinary practice, photo, writing, movement. Lizzie and I have taken dance classes.
Cool.
And most recently, I think about my art practice as being like a neighbor. And similar to Stoney and open air, like thinking about spaces where individuals can gather. And so I co-run a poetry library in Missoula, and getting my like radio voice on. There's like a radio show, and yeah, it's been really fun.
I love that, Alicia. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
My name's Carrie. I'm a dance filmmaker, so I like to make short films where dancers sort of dance or physical gesture tells the story. I also am a mother to a like very budding creative being. My daughter Hazel is a 5th grader and is extraordinarily visual art inclined, and I just am following her lead.
My name's Matt. I'm a carpenter and a woodworker. The thing that really tends to light me up the most is restoration of old pieces of furniture, or finding something that's sort of incomplete and making it complete and function again, like fit into our space, or make something useful out of it. So that keeping something out of the dump, and also just finding something interesting from the past kind of gives me a framework to make something out of it. Kind of gives me guardrails. So that's usually what really fires me up. But
Love that, thanks, Matt.
I'm Tess. I'm a writer and I'm a visual artist, but I feel like it's obviously like I've been, especially here, I've been working on that, but what I am always thinking about the last few months, we've been doing a lot of riding horses and like learning about horse training and like getting these like sweet animals to like trust me and like understanding them. And there's something like been very like new and scary and cool about that I feel like does demand a lot of creative thinking and open-mindedness. It's been really cool. So
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
My name is Emily and I'm a writer. Back in the 80s in LA, I was writing a lot of poetry and performing it at different coffee shops and so on. And now I am working on a historical novel. I think I'm partly influenced by Butte and all the old buildings. It's about Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, and a place. But this is my joke. I tell people that don't expect a lot of action. It's like imagine Jane Austen or Madame Bovary, starring mostly Etta and Harry, Sundance Kid. It's more introspective, first person, about the characters.
Awesome, thanks Emily, appreciate that.
Thank you. My name is Olivia, and I work with ceramics quite a lot. I work a lot with wild clay, and so though I make functional and sculptural wear, it always comes back to me as feeling like a engagement in duration and a dance with earth and body and time and material.
Yeah, thanks Olivia.
I just spent 45 minutes talking about myself. I'm happy to spend another 45 minutes, but I'd much rather.
My name is Christine. He's a curator, and I think actually, a lot of you know my work as a printmaker, but I will say, actually, I resonate with what Stoney said. I guess a big part of my art life, my art practice is placemaking, because I run this space with Alona, but for many years now, I've been the leader over at the print studio, community print studio at the Imagine Butte Resource Center, which I affectionately refer to as our anarchist pirate ship because nobody really is employed there. We're all just like a bunch of volunteers that run that spot, and sometimes it's really chaotic, and sometimes it really works. And I'm part of a community print like a community gallery, and I just helped found a local arts newspaper this month that I'm reading. So yeah, I don't know. When I'm community building, it's kind of my art.
Yeah, and I love hearing placemaking from different folks in there. Yeah.
I'm Scott,
Hey, Scott.
and I love to travel. Kelly and I have spent a lot of time traveling Latin America the last few years, and I love the art and the cathedrals and the tapestry, and we also love, Montana and the art we see here, and the Native American art and stuff like that. But she's more way amazing artist in my opinion.
Well, I'm not an artist, but my name is Kelly, and I have no background in art whatsoever. The only thing that I could say is when I was in high school, I took every art class possible, but I never did anything with it, and I took a different route and went into the military. So that was quite, different than what I'm experiencing now as an older adult. I just love to play around, and I love interior design. I love just being creative with cooking. So we've been trying to ferment. We got the whole sourdough thing. When we were taking care of my mom, we started making sourdough, and it's just really it's in me, but I've never had any training or education in it, but I love it and I appreciate it. And for traveling, we just adore going to other places and looking at the architecture.
Yes.
And the cathedrals, like you said. I mean, stained glass, going around in Butte.
Yes.
We're always oh my God, I just appreciate it. So it's in me, but I never bring it out. Yeah, curiosity.
Curiosity is
Perfect.
creativity.
Yeah, that's right.
And something tells me you go to Oaxacan markets with lots
Oh,
of
wow.
empty
Yes.
suitcases.
How do you know that?
I know you. Well, thanks y'all. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So what we're going to dig into a little bit together today as a group, and thank you again for sharing in this space, we're going to talk a little bit about how we are already, right, and maybe naming how we're tying our own values to our creative practices, okay? So I'm gonna start a little bit, and I'm gonna start with, I'm using analog today because I don't wanna use my computer. So we've got some papers, and I'm gonna hold some things up, if that's okay. So I wanna start by saying that I'm an educator. First and foremost, I've been an educator since I was 18 years old, and I was a substitute teacher in high school classes, which is insane. And so I use this kind of tower in my education practice. So the foundation of this is values. That is what lays the ground for whatever I do. From the values, I then think about outcomes. So what are the outcomes I want my learners to walk away with? Yeah? What are the pedagogies, which is the ways of teaching? How am I teaching them? Yeah? To get to those values? And then assessment. So did we do it right? And then that wraps back down in an iterative or evolving practice, right? Of like, okay, wait a minute, let's come back to my values. Maybe I need to change my pedagogies. So I adapt this for my art making practice. So first, my values are the foundation of how I make work. Yeah? And then the outcomes. Well, what am I going to get into? Is it going to be a short film? Is it going to be a photo series? Am I going to screw around? I love that, right? With metal, right? Is it going to be textile work? Is it going to be collaborative work? So I kind of think about this. And then instead of pedagogies, what are my methods? What kind of research am I doing? I'm a PhD student. I research all the time. My job as a researcher. So I do qualitative research for social change. So what are my research practices in making that artwork? And then assessment, right? Is this kind of how I want? No, that method didn't work. I actually really don't want to work with textiles right now. Maybe I'll just move to embroidery, right? Or maybe I'm feeling moved, right, to do large format photography. So this is kind of how my process works. But we see what is the same, right, is that foundation of values. So I want to just talk about my values a little bit and how we see those in my work. And then we're going to dig into our own values, if that feels good to y'all, okay? And we're going to tether those to what we do, and we're going to name that together. So my values are deeply, 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 deeply rooted in justice, and in social justice, and in equity. And I'm going to say words I can't say in my university classroom anymore. My values are tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion, through and through, yeah? So how does that, right, come up in my artwork? So I'm going to share a couple pieces here. Yeah.
Can you share just a little bit of your why? Why is that? Is that, I know it's like a big question, not a personal question. So if you want to skip that one, you can, but I'm just curious why that.
Yeah, so I work with people, right? I work alongside people. I work with people. I'm an educator. I'm an anthropologist. I'm an archaeologist. So I work with people from 150 years ago to tell their stories, right? And so I think part of living in this world, right, is like, how is everyone visible? How do we have justice, right? How do we carve out space where everyone can live full and holistic lives, right? And if we don't have inclusive practices, if we're not honoring multiculturalism and diversity, then that is not going to happen, right? So I can talk about that all day. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's fun ways I get to use those words now, right? So anyway, so talking a little bit about my values. So let's focus on justice. Right? And that justice goes through time, right? I do a lot of work in historical narratives and how we tie those to where we are right now. Because history does impact us, right? It's also a roadmap, right? So some of the things that feel secular, right? How were folks working their way through that 100 years ago, right? So talking a little bit about my values, I'm going to share a little bit of work, and then you can, why don't you pass that down, Christine? So just to show some past work, and then I'm going to talk about the posters on the table and what I've been doing in Butte, okay? So here, this is from a series on Marquette Park. Marquette Park is a park in Chicago. In 1966, MLK did a march to desegregate housing there. And so part of this work is, okay, how am I uplifting or grounding my values of justice? How have people been grounding those values throughout time? So here, these are photographs of Marquette Park in present day, and they're overlaid with archival images. They are printed on acrylic, and then they are lit, right, for exhibition. So the idea here is we're squashing space and time, right? And how is this land, right, seeing these acts of justice over time? Here, these are the species, and you can pass these down if you would like. Part of my work, too, is destabilizing a mythological narrative that the West was built by lone white cowboys, right? In the West, people were and have been taking care of each other, right? So this is where I'm going to tap into this idea of building a better world, which I'm going to talk more about. So how have people been building a better world? So in the West, right? Guess what, y'all? Not all homesteaders were white. Not all homesteaders were straight, right? There's folks in our historical records or in our archaeological records or in letters where we can find these stories that destabilized, right, or disrupted that mythology. So here, these are the species. This was a black homesteading family in Wyoming. They just recently got a historical plaque. And Wyoming guides are like, oh my God, there were black, oh, yes, there were, right? But if people are not dedicated to uplifting these narratives, then they get erased, right? Or they are omitted, right, of who built the places we call home. So the species were a black family. They came from the Black Hills of Nebraska, which were black homesteads. Look into it, it's beautiful. And they moved to Wyoming. So here I did hand and machine embroidery, creating these beautiful gold frames around these archival photos printed on aluminum. And I went and I found the historical records of the species and their homestead agreements, and I made cyanotypes out of that. So part of the process is how do I sit with these stories for longer periods of time. So how are these folks building a better world? And lastly, before we move on, these are tintypes, which is who knows what a tintype is? Yeah, what's a tintype, Alicia?
It's one of the original photographic processes. So there's, oh my gosh, my brain.
You're fine. You're doing great.
Like an aluminum or metal. I guess I don't. And there's chemicals. And
yeah, great. Perfect. And a big camera. Y'all have been seeing the movies when somebody puts a big blanket over them and takes a picture in a real less tiny tintype.
Yeah.
That's a tintype. So I created tintypes while in residency in rural Mississippi at the locations of the birth of these three incredible civil rights leaders. So Merle Evers, Medgar Evers' wife, I.B. Wells, and Fannie Lou Hamer. So I created tintypes, and then I drilled holes into these tintypes from their locations to show a snapshot of the night sky the day they were born. Right? So again, having that time to uplift, grounded in justice, and who are the people that were building a better world.
Are those stars?
So these are tintypes that I drilled holes in,
Drill the holes.
and they're backlit, but they mimic a fraction of the star map at that period of time.
Okay.
So some research involved. We go back to my pyramid, right? So that's some of my past work. So what am I doing in Butte? Well, I do work around labor. So when we talk about building a better world, right, what do labor unions do? They fight to build a better world, right, within an extractive and often violent capitalist system, right? So of course I've been researching Butte for years before coming here, right? Known as the Gibraltar of unionism. How are folks organizing their labor? I'm also a Marxist archaeologist, which is not, which means, right, people are like, you're a Marxist. It's like, that doesn't mean I'm a communist. It means I focus on labor and the means of production, right? And how do we make sense of the system we're in? So I'm in Butte because of the history of organized labor. So if we start looking, before we start working together, there's a couple posters here. So two of these come from the Celebrate People's History poster project. Has anybody heard of that? From the Just Seeds Collective. I also run a Celebrate Wyoming People's History project in my state. And so we're looking at some works celebrating organizers, celebrating labor organizers. Stoney, who do you have in your hand?
Grace Lee and Jimmy Boggs.
Check them out. They were Detroit organizers. They were amazing, right? Here, Matt, who do we have over here?
Oh, Dolores. Well, you should say, speak Spanish.
Where's that?
Dolores is Spanish. right? Who did organizing of farm labor alongside Cesar Chavez, but is often in the shadow of some male organizers, right? And then who's in front of you?
Frank H. Little.
Frank Little. So who are the Butte folks that have heard of Frank Little? Yeah. And Liz, can you tell me what you know about him?
He tried to organize the workers here, I guess it was for the mine, because that's the main thing in town, and they came to his house, or dragged him out of a bar, I can't remember, and they dragged him behind a car, and then they hung him from the bridge, I think it's on Centennial, next, kind of close to the Safeway at the bottom of Montana Street, or it's the bridge that Harrison turns into Front Street, I can't remember what bridge it was. And then they photographed, I believe, and hung signs on his dead body. And Emily embellished, do you recall any more details?
They killed him.
Yeah, they killed him, right? And so when we say they, it's still, we do not know who killed him, but we could guess, right? A lot of folks think the Copper Trust, right? Copper Kings. He was a threat, right? Because he was organizing workers in Butte for a better world, right? Now, I think what's interesting is the papers where we can read about Frank Little, they were owned by the company. So what we're reading is we're reading company history, right? But what we do know is 8,000 people were at his funeral, right? We do know he spoke 2 times over the course of a week. He was here for a week. And there were 6,000 plus people there. So we do know he was making an impact, right? So that is part of what brought me here. What is the legacy of building a better world in Butte? So I just shared out how my values underpin my work, right? How my values led me here to Butte. So what we're gonna do together, has anybody done value exercises before? Oh my gosh, okay, yeah, great. So what we're gonna do, and there's paper, there's pencils, there's all kinds of stuff over there. And then we should have one for everyone here, okay? So you get your own, or, and it's up to you. And so these are just a list of some values, right? Yeah, Carrie.
I just need a hand.
Okay. Great. Very prestigious. Okay, so we're gonna do this quick, y'all. So in 5 minutes, and this is an exercise I spent weeks on, okay? So but on 5 minutes, what I want you to do is I just want you to look at this list of values. Hey, Aubrey, my value is not on here. Then write it. This is by no means an exhaustive list. And we're gonna take just 5 minutes, right? And maybe you're like, I actually already know my values, I live them every day. Cool, write them on here, okay? So we're gonna take 5 minutes, and I want y'all to choose 10 values, okay? And I'll let you know when we have about 2 minutes left. Okay, does anybody else need? Thank you.
We're picking 10.
10. Yes. I would, if we had more time, I would get you down to 3. We're not going to do that. So, we're choosing 10, and you can also write in your own.
So these are our values?
They are your values.
Okay, so not that we value in other people.
No. Oh, great question, Liz. No, what are your values, right? If somebody were to describe Liz to somebody, like, right, like, yes, like, what does she embody?